kind of exceptionality to the world. It is not. That it is not an exceptionality to the world. The reason why I'm saying this is because you go back 9 years. Okay, in April 2015, the German writer, Nobel laureate Günter Grass, in the last interview that he gave before his death, made the point that the world is sleepwalking into World War III, the next World War. And that is my big concern. If the world is moving in this particular direction, and I do not think I'm exaggerating, I do not think I'm invoking terms that are apocalyptic, but this is the state of the world. If this seems to be the situation, to think of elections in familiar frames is perhaps a travesty of political analysis. It's something which means, it basically means that we're doing political analysis with blinkers on. If we are just looking at elections and the way that elections are conducted, the third phase is on right now, okay? It should be drawing to an end. And of course we get to know by the end of this month, it's a long drawn out election. But in everything that I've said so far, the 3 points that I've made, this is my last point. The plea, the urge, the point that I'm making is taking recourse or falling back on familiar frames will just not help us at all. We are entering a particular phase of human history where the signposts of the past have been extremely concerning and worrying. One aspect of those signposts was, 100 years ago, there was a complete collapse of democracy. My worry, I hope it doesn't happen, my worry is that we may be witnessing just the same thing happening all over again. It's a nasty feeling. I'll stop there.
Good evening, everyone. Before coming to this place, Amir was suggesting that if we have 2 more panelists, probably it will look like Arnab Goswami's panel discussion. And somebody else again suggested me that if you call Maninder Thakur and Tapan Bihari, probably the whole faculty meeting can be done here. So that, I was a little worried why so many people from the same panel, same center, are speaking on elections today. Of course, when I hear Amir often, this pessimism, this fear, this threat, I think it's a very threat, and we all are from a very longer time now are experiencing this kind of a fear that if the Modi regime comes to power one more time, there will be end of constitutional democracy. There is a possibility of fascism or autocratic regime, or even what they call a theological state and Hindutva state. That fear is very much in undercurrent, and in many occasions we endorse that these fears and these threats are real and actual. But I was also moving, apart from this kind of an intellectual discussions and addabaji that we often do, apart from that I was also moving into public. I'm also campaigning for certain political candidates here and there, and also looking at the ground level. And when I enter into the public realm, I thought that probably that kind of pessimism and that kind of fear is not there. Probably, why I'm saying this, probably the wave that we have seen in 2019 elections, that wave was there, that probably Modi is of course coming back. And again, we had an Adda earlier in 2019 also, and Ajay, RAJARSHI, Amir, all were there and suggested that no, of course Modi is not coming. I was the only person who said no, he's coming back. So of course those issues are there, but what I'm trying to suggest to you is that at the actual ground level today, there is no pessimism and there is no wave. There is a possibility that at least in certain states like Maharashtra, Bihar, Karnataka, Punjab, Delhi, Haryana, these are the states where probably BJP is not winning in a significant manner or in handsomely. That possibility is there. And therefore, this fear, this hope, this kind of a threat that are there is possibly there at the intellectual circle, but somewhere at the North Indian belt, that fear and that threat is not there. There is no Modi wave that I can substantiate by moving around people for a longer time now. Second, I was also thinking that if you see the political alliances today, I think the Congress re-arrival this time is distinct from what was Congress in 2019. The Congress is a different party. under Kharge's leadership, it was suggested that the marginalized social groups, mainly Dalits, have contributed or now substantiating the party as a party of the oppressed groups. There is again a bigger debate on caste census earlier, which suggested that probably the OBC political questions are handled carefully by the Congress party, and therefore there is a new hope that Congress party as a party of social justice has renewed itself and can make better inroads in political questions. Further, the Dalit tribal question is also taken up well by the Congress party, and therefore probably you will find that this time the social justice issue is the issue of wave, that everybody is talking almost everywhere, that without handling, without emphasizing, without dealing with the social justice question, any political party will have a problem. And therefore, when Amir was referring to Congress's manifesto, that manifesto is majorly a manifesto of social justice this time. And therefore, the attack by the BJP that probably if you allow that much of this kind of manifesto, it will snatch the powers and the privileges and the entitlements of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and OBCs, and it will be given to the Muslim communities. That fear is often been made. But the idea is this, that probably the only issue and wave that one can see in this election is the issue of constitutional democracy and the issue of social justice. And on that ground, you'll find that Congress is able to reprimand, Congress is able to somewhere challenge the prospect of BJP in the way it was aggressively moving at that part of time. And therefore, this issue is a crucial issue. Further, it was also suggested that BJP is also doing well on the social justice platform, that BJP is now again from a longer time now, BJP has improvised its image from a Brahmin Baniya party towards a party of what they call a subaltern Hindutva party. That image has been improved in a periodical manner, and through that it was suggested that probably this strong social base of the EBCs and the lower Dalits, that has not gone away, and because of the BJP's consistent what they call the welfare policies, freebies, or multiple other welfare policies that BJP has executed, because of that it was suggested that the BJP has a better control over the social base, because of which the BJP become a subaltern party today. And therefore you will find that even in the BJP, the concern of the poor and social justice is again taking a center stage. And therefore I am trying to suggest to you that this election is an election on these two major claims, whether we need to protect the constitutional democracy or not, or what will happen to the social justice policies. On that ground, you'll find that both the alliances, the NDA alliance and the India alliance, are continuously making effort to suggest that they are for the poor, they are for the marginalized social groups, and they will be protecting their interests without any much concern. And this binary is an important binary, that two major political blocs, India under the Congress leadership and India under the BJP's leadership, making this kind of a bigger claim. And the contestation here, these binaries are there. But I thought that apart from this simple generalization that I just offered, probably this is also a crucial time where we are also seeing that those parties which continuously suggested that they are the torch bearers of the social justice politics, though they are the what they call leaders, and this community should lead the social justice movement across India, those parties and movements are almost relegated in this kind of binary which is there between NDA and the NDA and India. And therefore I am trying to suggest to you that though of course defeating BJP is a crucial task for all progressive, liberal, left and other political groups, but while accepting this kind of binary, that NDA versus an India kind of alliance that we are now projecting, we are also seeing that those political parties that continuously claim for social justice policies, those who led that particular battle, are almost relegated and almost not in the part of the political deliberation today. I'm making kind of a suggestion for the parties, like for that matter, the BSP in Uttar Pradesh, or the Lok Jan Shakti Party in Bihar, or the VCK in Tamil Nadu, or the Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi in Maharashtra. These are the Dalit parties, and for a very, very long time, you'll find that these parties made this very powerful claim that the Dalits Bahujan should be the torch bearers of the social justice politics. And we'll find that in today's time, when we are making these very strong and stiff binaries between NDA and India, we'll find that these political forces, which were there for such a long time, are they have no power to play a crucial role in the politics of in the democratic deliberation. And this is a kind of a concern that those organizations, political leaders, and political outfits that carried those struggles for such a long time and created a space on which the issue of social justice, the issue of marginality, the issue of deprivation, and many other concern for injustices can be deliberated and debated. Those people are no more there to lead that particular battle, and on their place, what we are seeing, that the parties and the outfits that often in our social science literature, we often call them those parties that serve the interests of social elites and the rich classes. These parties are now hoping that when they will flag the issue of social justice, the marginalized people will be mobilized by them and based on their support, the NDA or the India will win. And this is a kind of a tussle that I thought that curiosity was there in my mind, that how to resolve this particular problem, that there is a marginality or marginalization of those political parties which raise these issues of social justice for a consistent time, and they are no more there in the picture, and there are just two options: either you should be with the alliance, with the India or ND alliance, or even if you are contesting independently, there will be no voters for you. Like in Maharashtra, earlier the Vanchit Bahujan Aghadi, a very important political party, Prakash Ambedkar led that party, got almost 8% of vote in two distinct elections. You'll find that this time there are consistent intellectual roundup and somewhere civil societies and multiple other intellectuals are suggesting that there should be no vote from the Dalit side to the VBA. Why? Because if you vote for the VBA, the ND will win. And in that kind of a complexity, you'll find that these parties are in turmoil. They do not have the capacity to challenge the NDA and the India alliance. Why? Because if they contest independently, they were seen as the vote breakers or the breakers of the secular alliance. And therefore, beyond this kind of a generality, that there is a division between a progressive and the conservative force, and there is a requirement that the large chunk of the Dalits and the OBCs and the Adivasis must defeat the BJP and elect or vote for in the support of the Congress-led India. But the question is not only ended there. There is a further discussion required on that. The issue of social justice is an issue like. If you read anything on Ambedkar, for that matter, when you visualize that Indian democracy, it was suggested that the procedural democracy is not a great value. There is a need for a substantive democracy where the socially marginalized groups should intervene into democracy not as a passive claimant of some material doles from these social elites, but by themselves can enter into that political realm and govern the political system. The restructuring of the political structure is required. And that possibility is completely diminishing today. And as Amir was saying, that the fear is not only amongst the Muslims, that whatever regime comes, like we all know that whatever kind of political arithmetic they do, there is a continuous relegation of some, like either it's NDA or India, the relegation of Muslims is inevitable. Similarly, it was suggested that though there will be a political change, there will be a change in the governance tomorrow, but the domination, the hegemony, the control, the larger power of the social elite is not going to diminish. And to against that particular power, there was a political challenge, there was a political alternative, but this election we will find that because of this binary, because it's stiff binary, that if you are not defeating the BJP, you are supporting the BJP. Because of that binary, most of the other social groups, those who raise those voices for social justice, those voices for against marginalization and injustice, those voices are also dumped in current time. And that worry is a sincere worry for me, that it is just a procedure that we are following, and in that procedure probably the BJP will be defeated, but the other possibility of substantive democracy, where the socially marginalized social groups, Dalits, Adivasi and OBC, will take up the cradle of power into their own hands and restructure the political organization, that possibility has completely diminished today. Thank you very much for listening.
So let me start with, saying that I'm going to make kind of 10 points of observation about the elections. The first is, of course, following what Amir has been saying, and then Harish flagged that this time the elections have taken on an extra significance. Okay, and as Amir said, that there are those, including us, who see it as an election for saving democracy. Okay, democracy is itself in peril, and this is, quite easily understandable, because to an extent that I didn't notice before in 2019 or 2014 about the Constitution, which I think also kind of has a resonance with the, in some sense, the Shaheen Bagh movement, which kind of brought forth the question of Constitution in a major way. With Article 370, the removal of Article 370, with the question of democracy and social welfare, and as Harish has just said, social justice, which has come out to be a major question. Although, Harish thinks that the real champions of social justice have become a bit marginalized in this polarization between the two blocks. I think nevertheless the agenda of social justice has emerged to be very major agenda. Now there is little doubt, I don't think there is any point in fooling ourselves about the fact that the ruling party of BJP and NDA appears to be what we call hegemonic in social sciences and in political science. But the interesting thing about this hegemony is that, and this has something to do with the speed of politics, which becomes very interesting, especially during elections, that there is a change between January and May. In January, the ruling regime and the ruling coalition looked far more formidable, and the electoral win looked like it was a foregone conclusion. But this is not the case any longer. There seems to be appearing serious cracks and fault lines, areas of weakness in the otherwise hegemonic kind of dominance of the NDA, and these fault lines and these cracks, of which we'll talk a bit more in a bit, are being attacked by the opposition in the India bloc and other formations. Most importantly, I think what has changed with regard to the last two LOKSABHA elections, is that there used to be the Tina factor, there is no alternative. I think this is this election, we no longer have that sort of an impression of there being no alternative to the ruling regime or to the Prime Minister. India has emerged to be, in the India bloc has emerged to be at least a fighting opposition that for many deserves fair chances across many constituencies. What I derive from this, and this gets confirmed by the fact that if you listen to the speeches and to the kind of publications, handouts and conversations of BJP leaders or NDA representatives, you'll see that it's actually, for the first time perhaps, and you may differ with me, it has kind of fallen back to a sort of fuzzy and defensive kind of narrative. The agenda of Ram Mandir no longer seems to be universally effective. Its influence has waned among many in the population. There are more and more people who seem to be thinking that the BJP's delivery of development in concrete terms of health, education, food security, so on and so forth, it looks quite shaky. Another very important thing that had made opposition to the regime very, very difficult earlier has shifted, which is the identification of the regime with the nation. So speaking against the regime or criticizing the regime was very easy to kind of club with being anti-national, for instance. This has loosened up, and there is a way in which people can make a distinction between seriously criticizing the regime and, that having no contradiction with being nationalists, for that matter. The ruling party speeches are, in some sense, they have very few unpredictable factors. Most of it is, kind of familiar rehashing of old rhetoric. For example, calling the opposition Tukre Tukre gang, which is, as you know, associated with JNU, calling them anti-Hindu, calling them pro-Muslim, Muslim appeasing, and, welfareist to a dangerous kind of an extent. All these, points, all these speaking points we are fairly familiar with. At the same time, we know that BJP is also kind of handing out counter welfare schemes and, promising a whole lot of counter welfare schemes. Now, the most important reason why I think that much of the BJP's narrative in that sense this time is defensive is because most of its polemic and speeches are basically attempts to distract one's attention from issues like inflation, unemployment, the rising inequality of wealth, crony capitalism, scams like electoral bonds, etc. So in some sense, I constantly see a thing that seems to be going in favor of them, which is, somewhat vague and entirely, constructed, but has found some credence among people, some sort of purchase among people, is that apparently India's image abroad in foreign countries have gone up, and India now enjoys a different degree of respect that it never enjoyed. So this is probably the only factor that I think is working in favor of the NDA coalition. The opposition, which largely is the India bloc led by Congress, but also there are a host of other regional parties and small formations, they seem to be, to my mind, they seem to have sidestepped a populist agenda. They could have very easily gone into a counter-populist agenda, and they are converging precisely around the issues that India is trying to distract from, issues of unemployment, inflation, gas cylinder, miserable conditions of the poor, lack of economic development, privatization of public resources, selling off national property like railways, airways, public sector units, and the use of government agencies to destroy a level playing field, the situation in Manipur, which is, kind of burning for a long time, and especially the plight of women. But I think the most credible threat that the opposition is managing to pose to the NDA bloc is that the purpose of winning 400 plus seats, and some have referred already before, is, as several BJP leaders immediately confirmed after this slogan came up, is that despite the refutation of some central leaders, the point of winning 400 plus seats is opens up the possibility of fundamentally amending the constitution. And, what many suspect to be doing away with the thrust for social justice. This is, in my reading, it has turned out to be the biggest weakness in the ruling party narrative, as they know that the opposition's charge is not very far from what people think to be true. Besides, the slogan shows a confidence, which is 400 plus slogan, shows a confidence that is actually missing from the BJP's recent efforts to include defectors from the opposition, somewhat desperately. The most interesting development in all this seems to me is that it is the first time when As a result, the ruling party is unable to set the narrative according to which the election is going to be fought, and therefore to set the immediate agenda for the elections. Now, howsoever fragile and internally heterogeneous the India bloc may appear, and thus they may appear weak before a united and formidable BJP, it is their narrative of inflation, unemployment, failure to deliver development that BJP seems to be responding to most of the time. And this is dragging them to a ground which they are, which they find to be themselves to be weak on. This is the ground of, at some level, hardcore economics, statistics, facts, figures, and obvious evident signs in everyday life like that of inflation, jobs, hunger, crisis of health services, education. This is no longer proving easy to be dismissed by invoking sheer pride or contempt around particular religions. Because, as I am trying to say, the narrative has decisively changed, at least for now. Of course, one must not underestimate the NDA strength, their command over resources, and their widespread support among cross-sections of public, backed by powerful publicity machinery, media, IT cell, etc. Now, technologically and with regard to the psychology of communicating with the masses, it seems the BJP is far superior to any other party at this moment, let alone Congress. A major factor showcasing all these areas of strength is the building up of the image of the Prime Minister, the individual image of the Prime Minister, which started with the hugely successful turn to the charismatic leader-based populism model, which Ajay has written copiously about and very eloquently. The building up of the Prime Minister's image as a charismatic leader that actually paid high dividends in 2014 and then in 2019. In this election, it appears that this particular process has become saturated and probably has gone over a tipping point. Compared to the past Lok Sabha elections, the personal charisma of the PM seems to have significantly fewer takers, especially among the youth who were adolescent fans before in 2014 and now appear very worried and increasingly unhappy about the scarcity of jobs. So this is where I'm coming to, kind of the end of what I had to say. This is where I think the most sophisticated strategy of the opposition bloc, India, appears to have created an effect that is not immediately or apparently visible. I'm talking about a strategy that I believe to be very sophisticated and interesting. What is this strategy? Sometime last year or previous year, it seems, several leaders of the India bloc realized that the BJP star campaigners thrive most when it is made into a presidential type of contest, like pitting Modi against Rahul Gandhi. What we can see therefore is, despite the key leader being Rahul Gandhi, or at least one of the key leaders, there is an array of regional leaders this time who are key campaigners in their respective regions. So you have Sharad Pawar, Uddhav Thackeray, Arvind Kejriwal, Mamta Banerjee, Stalin, DK Shiv Kumar, Revant Reddy, Vijayan, and several others. This makes it logistically very difficult for the 2 or 3 star BJP speakers and campaigners to take on this entire. This was the reason behind Rahul Gandhi's decision to not contest from Rai Bareli. It changes, completely takes away the shift for focus from Smriti Irani and the expected pattern of events. Now we need to remember that the BJP has delivered on its core agendas, ideologically speaking. Ram Mandir, Article 370 removal, bringing in uniform civil code. Now this will no doubt make its core constituencies happy and secure their support for NDA. One can see this in the many independent YouTube news channels. Chunks of such supporters are middle-aged, middle-class people like me, unfortunately. Interestingly. But the delivery of this agenda has not really got new supporters into their ranks. Despite fighting on 370 across the country, the BJP is not contesting in Kashmir itself, which is quite telling. With Ram Mandir, the calculation seems to have been a bit premature, too early to kick in for the elections. UCC remains very hotly debated on constitutional grounds. Thus, given that they reached the high point of 300 in 2019, it seems fairly unlikely that they will touch that figure again, this time without something like a Balakot and a huge emotional wave. So to be fair, it seems the ruling party is going to lose a significant chunk of seats from what they had won in the last elections. They are, for all practical purposes, more or less shut out from the south. Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, you name it, Telangana. Their prospects also don't look very happy, as Harish was reminding us, in Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, Delhi, Maharashtra, where they're likely to lose seats. And these are regions where they had scored very high, including Karnataka. While UP and Bihar remain crucial, and Bihar along with Maharashtra, West Bengal and Karnataka are one of the kind of swing states, what are referred to as swing states. They can UP and Bihar remain crucial, and they can look to retain their seats safely in Uttarakhand, Himachal and, to my mind, in Madhya Pradesh, besides Gujarat. But two minor developments are interesting to take note. One is the withdrawal of candidates in Surat and in Indore. Now, both these places are known as strong grounds of the RSS and BJP organization. Now, one wonders if these were really strong and sure grounds, what was the necessity to push opposition candidates to withdraw their nominations? Okay, so does it show signs of nervousness? I am told that the opposition's conservative estimate of winning seats in UP is around 10 to 15. Okay, by sources I think reliable, and somewhat lesser number in Bihar, where Nitish seems to have lost some credibility. So basically, I believe the ruling party will look to replenish its losses in the east, Assam, Tripura and West Bengal, even as they lose ground in Manipur. Besides Assam, they have strong contesting regional opposition elsewhere. The situation is tricky in West Bengal, I'm afraid. The BJP is strong in North Bengal and growing quite rapidly in the south, with new blocks of supporters among precisely the Bengali Dalit Namashudra refugees who have been promised citizenship under the CAA by the BJP. The ruling TMC, as we know, is plagued by serious charges of corruption and the same problem of being based on one charismatic leader. However, it has managed to grow a stable support base among the rural poor, especially women, with its competitive welfare schemes. Given that the Congress and CPM have recovered some ground of late and challenged the TMC, despite sharing the opposition bloc, there are two kinds of speculations about the BJP's prospects in West Bengal. One estimate says that their tally will grow from 18 seats last time to 25 plus. The version is that the continued harassment of the state and the TMC rule by the centre will bring down the tally to around 15 or under. Now, if we go by the optimistic projection for BJP, this means they can add roughly 10 seats in the east, while they lose roughly around 50 seats by conservative estimates elsewhere, which should bring them around 260. A little short of the number needed to form the government, and even if they form the government, not a brute majority. The optimistic projection for the opposition, on the other hand, is that the BJP gets restricted to somewhere around 230 or 240, which will create a chance for a coalition government. So the decisive battle comes down to 30 to 40 seats across the country, which will be, I think, decided by the narrative that proves to be more powerful. India as a potential superpower versus India undergoing the highest unemployment and inflation, among the periods since independence. Naturally, this gives a decisive role to the youth as to the poor. Regardless of the result, this is a structurally positive development this time. Do I have 5 more minutes to... The last point that I wanted to add here is, regardless of who wins or loses, okay, and we have to take that kind of a stance to elections, okay, despite our best efforts. I believe there is another factor in this election that has a profound kind of implication, and it has to do with a change in the language of electoral politics in this country. In a long time, and despite the shrill and screaming tone of electronic television media, one can now hear a growing, sober, thoughtful and imaginative language that counters, racial polarization and pitting one section with another. There are speeches that are calm but exciting, restrained and yet provocative, challenging and yet not manipulative, showing an enduring conviction in the Constitution, in social justice, and a critically secular vision of an accountable democracy, accountable to the people. I am very happy to say, despite sharing the pessimism of Amir, that a big part of this change in the political language is a direct contribution of JNU. The public and campaign speeches of Kanhaiya Kumar, Sandeep Saurabh, Deepshita Dhar, Oishi Ghosh, and several others, whose videos you might be watching on social media, bear this out. It is a language that also calls for taking responsibility for why and how JNU was attacked and made into a villain in 2016. I would like to believe that it is JNU that provided the crucial insight about how the style and language, the very discourse of politics, is a vital ground of intervention. How does one rearticulate a social justice agenda that will become universal across classes, communities and groups? I believe in patiently waiting for that. Thank you.